Dean, it's so great to see you. The last time I saw you, I think we were making out at your Hall of Fame induction ceremony at 3 a.m.
There were whispers of that. I think you were the aggressor.
It was so much fun to see this honor that you were bestowed with.
I tried so hard not to have a drink before that presentation, but I let my hair down afterwards.
It was so good. What did that mean to you after all these years?
It meant a lot. You know, it took a while for it to sink in, I think. I never, ever expected it. I really didn't. And then Tom Evans said, you should be in there. I said, Tom, I'm just a fishing guide, you know. I'm happy to just be a part of what he'd achieved and what other anglers that I'd fished with that had caught world records. And but yeah, it sunk in after that night, after the hangover was gone and all that. I realised that I was in a club, a pretty special club, you know, and people who don't fish say, I heard you got some award, you're in the IGF Hall of Fame. And I said, yeah, I am, you know. Ernest Hemingway, Zane Grey.
Yeah.
Presidents, Lefty Kreh.
All your heroes.
Yeah, so it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Did most of your work, or a lot of it, come with all those billfish you caught with Tom over the years? Is that the prize that you got, that you had captured in your life, other than the grander you caught?
Well, I actually caught world records myself on fly. I always fish IGFA since we started to fish, because in Australia there's quite a strong tournament scene, and they fish by IGFA rules. So it was always something that we did. However we fished by those rules. So when we started fly fishing in the early 80s, I had buddies that were catching yellowfin tuna on IGFA tackle. Some of them had caught a world record yellowfin, or a couple of them on 16 and 20 when it came out. So I was lucky enough to get involved in 94, I think, and a friend of mine was seeing lots of striped marlin south of where I lived at a place called Port Stephens, and I went down and said, I want to catch one on a fly.
Wow.
And that was 94, I think. And he just laughed and said, yeah, I've got to see that, come on down. So we went down, and on the first day, I only had 2 days. The bite had changed and there was no fish. The water was green. At 1 o'clock we started drinking some beers, and we hadn't seen a fish all day, and he was apologetic about there being no fish. And at about 3 o'clock we saw some fish feeding on the surface, marlin. We ended up getting 16 shots.
Wow. In
the afternoon, and hooked a bunch and dropped them, broke them off. Anyway, ended up catching a 91 kilo striped marlin on 10 kilo line.
It's about 180 pounds.
199 pounds.
Yeah.
And it beat a record. I can't think of the guy's name, a well-known billfish angler from, the generation before me. But I beat that, and then I caught an Australian record the next day.
Wow.
On 16 pounds.
You started off hot.
Yeah, well, that was me as an angler wanting to do it. And then I realised that was a great fishery that hadn't really been tapped into, only by the locals that fished it for tournaments. They fished 50 and 80 pound tackle. So I started fishing there and charter fishing with a buddy of mine called Craig Denham, or Sparrow we know him as. There's a famous marlin fishing captain about my age. And I said, I reckon we can get Americans down there to fish to these fish. There were so many fish there, it was unbelievable. And I remember one day early on there, his girlfriend, talk about people that don't fly fish, but we were setting up on a fun day. We were doing charters. We were doing 70 days a season, and we were ticking away at records. We were catching records with people that had never caught a marlin before, because the records were small,
Sure.
We went out there one day on a fun day and caught 2 world records. I caught a black marlin world record on 16, and she caught a striped marlin world record that still stands to this day. I think it's like 180 on 12.
Wow.
So we caught 2 in one day. So the fishery was obviously healthy and good, and we were learning a lot fast about how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I ended up selling my records to other clients because they get on the boat and say, we'd fish 20. So my record got broken by Fouad Sahoui from Morocco on our boat, and my black marlin record got beaten by one of my clients, Brian Kane. From
I remember
California.
that name, yeah.
And he still has the record on black marlin on 20 pounds, 101 kilos on 10 kilo line. So it's over a 200 pound black marlin. Mm-hmm. And to this day, that still stands. That's another one we caught with him. So some of the records that I'd caught and some of the records that our clients caught, we'd break the next week.
That's crazy.
So by the time Tom got there, we had more than a dozen world record marlin. We've just kept beating them and getting better at
breaking your own records.
Breaking their own records with whoever was chartering the boat. And then we had Marcel Pro, who was the president of the French Big Game Fishing Club. He was a fly fisherman, and his wife, Anique. They used to come down every year. She caught 2 world records with us, and this is all before 2000. Mm-hmm. And so we had quite a few fish under our belt by then. I'd fished with different captains then. I was fishing with a famous captain who's now passed away, Bill Bilson, on the Viking, and Tom contacted me and said he wanted to come down and fish for records. And I said, I got to tell you, the fishery's not as good as it was, and it had slowed down. The longliners had got to those fish. And we're talking about schools of striped marlin, hundreds and thousands of them.
No kidding.
And
all on the surface feeding?
Oh, they were all on the surface.
Free jumping?
Oh, all the time, yeah. Throwing flies into schools of striped marlin that had bait balls. Up, you know.
So it's like Mexico, Mags Bay.
Yeah, it's like Mexico, but the fish are bigger. Our fish were bigger, but it's exactly that same scenario. But 2 things happened was as the popularity of the fishing was, it was a secret. It wasn't a secret, but it was hardcore fishermen. But live baiters started. People came in, they didn't know how to troll lures, they didn't know how to rig baits, but they could take a live slimy mackerel and put it on a hook and read the fancy sounders that everyone was getting now and drop down on the bait schools and
pull them up,
smash them. So all of a sudden there's guys catching 10 or 12 striped marlin a day, 18 I think was the record, all on live bait. But when you do that, you've got marlin that are striped marlin that are working the bait, and what a marlin does when he does that, and what happens at Mag Bay is they push it to the surface because once they get there, the bait can't go anywhere.
It can't go higher.
Mm-hmm. Can't go anywhere. But if you drop baits down and disturb the marlins and hook the marlin when they're doing their thing down there, which is easy to see on the equipment that's available nowadays, those baits can spread out and get away because you catch 6 or 7 fish that are on a bait school.
Break up the school.
School's gone. So they're not coming to the surface where we were trolling our teasers. Mm-hmm. So it made it harder. But so that was starting to happen 99, 2000, and I didn't talk. So we had 5 or 6 years of great fishing before Tom came down with lots of records. And as we caught the records, obviously the fish got bigger. So your average person wasn't really up to catching those fish anyway or trying to beat them. And we still caught them and released them, and it was fun. But I really enjoyed the challenge of trying to catch the biggest one ever.
I got a question for you. I did a podcast recently with Carl Anderson.
Yes.
You know Carl?
Yeah, he's I know him mainly as a Marlin magazine columnist.
Yeah, he was a writer. But he fished.
I think he's a good guy.
Yeah, and he fished with Peter Wright a lot on the Great Barrier Reef. And he was saying in the podcast, fly fishing for marlin is not fly fishing.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I think it's a really stupid way to catch a marlin, but I certainly agree that the way 99% of the people are throwing flies at marlin sailfish now. It's not fly fishing, no question. I don't know.
Their leaders are not right. Fishing
quite
over
often,
20.
Quite often, yeah.
Trolling.
I think he was mostly talking about boats still in gear while they're
Yeah,
throwing
I
the
agree.
fly.
But I'm just asking, Dean.
Fly fishing for marlin is fly fishing if you do it
Correctly.
the way the rules dictate.
Show me your arm again. I find that tattoo interesting. Explain what we're looking at here. You have a marlin on top of a rod, and you have dimensions.
Well,
there.
that's actually, that's a tippet.
As a tippet. Okay.
Blown out tippet, old skin.
So show me what this is.
Well,
Tell-
before you go there, let me just explain what Carl's probably talking about. There's a lot of people that have been to Costa Rica and Guatemala over the years, and they fish 60 straight through or 80 straight through. Now, that's not fly fishing straight away.
Right.
They don't, nowadays, no one strips line out on the deck. They have just enough fly line on the deck to do a two-handed shit cast, whatever sort of cast that is. So it's just a water haul up,
Lob it.
lob it out.
Roll
40
cast.
not even a roll. These roll casts are hard in a 14 weight. This is just a water haul. He's coming. The boat's meant to be out of gear. Out of gear cast. They pick it up and they throw it down. Anyone can do that. There is no strip line on the deck. So now their fly is skidding across the wake as the boat slows down, if they stop the boat. And when they get a bite, they've got a drag set on their reel, fly line straight to the reel, and they give a couple of tugs and now they've got a marlin on or a sailfish. That to me is not fly fishing. The way we always set up is we'd have 50 foot of line stripped out, whatever the angler was comfortable with. They'd have to make a cast past the fish, so somewhere between 15 and 30 feet. So, and we'd tease the fish so the fish would turn as the boat went out of gear, the fly would land, we'd let the fly sink away, and you get a nice clean bite.
Going away bite,
no popper heads. And then you got to strike the fish, and then you got to clear your line, which is
fly fishing.
Yep. No one does that now. And I don't know if Carl ever knew how to do it that way. I
think he does, and I think that's what he was referring to.
But nowadays they don't do it. It's someone goes to Guatemala, catches 10 sailfish and say, hey, do you want to catch one on fly? Oh, I don't fly fish. It doesn't matter. We just see how we do it. And they generally don't fish tippets.
Yeah. You're talking about they're using a 12-foot tippet so they can get a quick release, right?
About 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, the question came up about how long your butt section what should be the limit of how long your butt is. Now, most fly fishermen who are getting on game boats fly fishing wouldn't even know what a butt section was. But
right.
We all know that it's from the fly line to the loop you connect your class tippet to. I've always used about 3 or 4 feet, generally 3 feet, half an arm, because throwing a 14-weight fly rod with any more than that is hard.
To turn
on a good day, it's really hard. So I've had plenty of clients from America that have come out and they've got this 12-foot butt section. And the reason they've got that is the IGFA created a catch and release slam or something. I don't know what you catch all of the
billfish.
Billfish.
9 billfish. Yeah.
And to get a caught fish, all you have to do is get the connection between the butt and the fly line to the tip, caught fish.
Yep.
Now, it's not caught unless you put it in the boat or grab it by the face and take the fly out. That's what I think. But and there's been cases where guys have got that knot through the tip in 5 minutes and said, "Oh, let's tag the fish," and can't catch it in 5 hours. But they'll still tell you they caught it, even though they couldn't catch it. So
There's a lot of gray there.
It's not a good indication on that's a caught fish. It's a terrible indication.
It's not a caught fish. Mm-hmm. It's not a caught fish until you've got the fish under control. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to control a wild marlin, you know. So anyway, coming back to this is just the shock. This is just what I believe is
the dimensions you use.
Yeah, shock 12-inch max. That's
right.
what we use.
Yep.
The class is 15-inch minimum. And the butt, no more than 4 feet or you're fucking cheating. That's what it says, and that's what I believe. So, and I don't mind that the IGFA has brought that particular section in for people to pursue, but I'm not going to sit down and have a conversation with someone about catching marlin when that's how they catch them, because I don't believe that's. I'm happy to know they went out and connected with a wild creature in the ocean and saw it jump and saw all of that, and it's the same with. Oh, we caught a world record marlin, but we let it go, you know.
Right.
And if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be wearing a better shirt.
Well, it's the same thing with the tarpon world too.
It's the same thing, and there's very few. And again, I don't care what people think, but it's you can be called a grumpy old bastard because you don't want to have a conversation about catching fish when they don't really catch them.
Mm-hmm. The understanding is quite different from people who are catching records and winning tournaments.
Yeah, well, you've done it in the tournament.
Yeah.
How could you? Do they have it? They do actually have a not in the tip caught fish deal. Don't they?
There's one tournament. It's a release tournament, but the others you get extra points when you take the fly out of the fish. And in the
cool.
weight fish tournaments, you got to catch them, put a strap on them, and take the length.
No,
of the
so
fish.
the golden fly and the holly, you can, if you reel in the nail knot or whatever fly line knot, you get points. The Gold Cup now, they changed that format a couple of years ago where even the release fish you have to grab.
You have to take the
So
fly out.
50-pounder you have to grab.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Right.
And the holly, the guide's got to go up and break it off.
Right.
With the boat out of gear. But anyway, what I want to do is talk about...
We've tagged in tournaments fly fishing for marlin. We've tagged fish in 14 seconds.
Yeah.
Got it on, gone back, used the boat, tagged it, broke it off, points for the tournament. Mm-hmm. If that's the game you play, fine. But
yeah, sure.
It's not
completely
cool.
different. Yeah.
It's not cool.
One of the things I'm interested in is your grander you caught.
Oh, yeah.
The 1142.
With Tom, yeah.
Right. You were fishing with Tom at the time?
Yeah.
And how'd that go down?
Well, where
were you?
We're in Vanuatu.
Uh-huh.
Myself and my offsider on that job was Russ Houseby, a really good fisherman from the UK who's now living. I introduced him to Vanuatu and he'd fished with me in Australia, but he's still there now running the charter boat. But we set up a boat for Tom called the Blue Dog. He wanted to call it Blue Balls, but I said, we can't call it Blue Balls. So we got this beautiful old boat called Blue Dog and we took it to Vanuatu where we'd had luck catching the blue marlin on the fly with Tom out of other charter boats. But reliability of different boats and captains and things. So anyway, we did our own thing. We put a lot of effort to getting that boat right to travel. We ran it from Brisbane in Australia to Vanuatu, which is 1,280 miles.
That's over by New Zealand area?
It's northern New Zealand.
Right.
Yeah, so New Zealand's 1,280 miles from Sydney across the ocean to the east, Pacific Ocean. And
what's that like, traveling that far on a boat?
You want to have your shit together. Your 45-foot boat gets little when you're 400 miles from land.
Wow.
But, we did it quite a few times. We did 6 open ocean crossings in that boat. We went to New Zealand 3 times.
So you've got to have an engineer on the boat in case the motors go down, right?
We never did. But we made sure we were good to go, right. And everything was right. And it's easier nowadays because you can monitor the weather so much better. You got to have an open book for when you travel. You can't say we're going on Monday. You got to wait. But anyway, we did that trip and got the boat set up there in Vanuatu, and it was the first time Tom had fished on his boat. He flew into Vanuatu. We got on board the boat. On the third day, on the 2 days we fished locally around the major city there, we didn't see any fish, so we decided to do what the boat was designed to do and travel through the islands. There's 83 islands in Vanuatu, and it's beautiful, beautiful country in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And we caught the first blue marlin on 12-pound test in Vanuatu prior to that boat getting there. The first
not
ever,
a record though.
Yeah, it was a world record. It was the first blue marlin on 12-pound. Tom caught. It was only a little fish, and I think Enrico Compozzi broke that record. But we also caught a 273-pound blue marlin on 16-pound.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom had caught we'd lost some big marlin. We'd had lots of shots at 300-pounders. Our goal was always to catch one over 3, and I think we may have done it one day, but we had problems with the scales and it got too hard, so we just called it 280, but I think it was a big fish.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we decided to move up through the islands, and I always said, because there's big fish there, we've seen them behind our teasers, we'd hooked many 400, 500, 600, 700-pound blue marlin on the fly.
Oh, you do that? Oh, on the fly.
On the fly. And broken gaffs, lost gaffs, but had crew pulled out of the boat. They're tough to catch with the way the records are, which is one of the challenges we all enjoy. But I also I said to Tom, I want to just, if we see a really big fish, I'd like to catch it on conventional tackle, 130-pound conventional tackle. And so I had a bait set up. Third day, every morning we get all our shit together.
Are you traveling or fishing now?
We're doing a bit of both this particular day, but we were set up and we were towing 2 teasers, fly fishing. I had a small bait with a strong hook on a heavy tackle rod.
Just in case.
Just in case. And people said, you were lucky you had that ready. I said, no, we weren't lucky to have that ready because we had it ready every day. We're just lucky to run over a nice one. Anyway, we raised this fish and I took one look at it. Russ was driving the boat and I could tell by the way he said on the right. He wasn't saying on the right. He was saying fucking on the right. Big fish. And I was actually in the cabin doing something because we're still setting the boat up. And I come out and I said, how big? He said, it's fucking big. And I said, Tom, too big to throw the fly. Let's just pitch this bait. And Tom said, yeah.
Sure.
But he would have liked to have thrown the fly. But I took over the program and I threw the bait out. Anyway, we got it on.
What was the bite like?
Well, he ate it once and he came up and just went like this, like a sailfish. And I could tell it was big. His hooter was that round at the end, you know. But I couldn't see into the water to see the fish. And he just pulled the bait out of my hand. And I let him have it, and I felt him drop it. And I went, oh, no. So I cranked the bait back up, put the reel in free spool, and is he there? And he went, big bite. I said, oh, this is a big fish. And when I struck him the second time, I didn't give him any time because the way he bit it the second time, it was already down in his guts. And I just felt that hook. You know, and I know this is family friendly, but it ripped into his guts, and I could feel that fish
tearing. Can you feel? You can feel it tearing.
I just knew I hooked him good, and I hooked him to kill him. You know, I didn't hook him to let him go. I was going to kill the fish, and he Tom come running out with the camera and says, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Fucking wind it in." So we got him. He's never caught a fish in the chair. So we'd set him up earlier so we knew how to do it, but he'd had no coaching or anything. And Tom just went straight to sunset, which is as much drag as we could get. And he put his hands in there and he tried to stop that fish pulling. And the fish was sluggish because it was hurting straight away. And it came up and Tom did a great job in the chair. He really did. He just fished because he's such a solid man. Sure. You know, he was able to apply his weight with the leverage of his weight on the fish, and he had that thing bent over that rod, and that fish came out of the water and it just sort of stuck its head out of the water and then went splash, and it just started gushing blood. And
Died.
well, it didn't die. No, it didn't die, but we'd hooked him in the gut, so he was trying to get rid of whatever was upsetting him. There was just blood and shit going everywhere. I'm sure he would have weighed 1,200 had he not done that a few times. But anyway, we fought him for about 20 minutes. It was rough, about 25 knots. So
Wow.
we got him on the leader one time, had a good look at him and knew he was big enough. And but wave action and that, we had to let it go. We got it on again. We're putting gaffs together while all this is happening because we weren't set up for conventional, and we ended up putting 3 gaffs in it and dragging it through the door. Funny thing about that is when we set the boat up, I had said to Russ, we need to get a block and tackle, a pulley system. So if we do get a big fish,
You can pull them in.
we can pull them in. So we'd hit it very deep in the boat because we didn't think we'd need it. So not the third day, first fish for the boat. Block and tackled that thing into the door and said, wow. Measured it, ran to a little island where a village was, Malakula, a big island actually, and had the locals drag it into shore, and we hung it up in the tree and it weighed 1142,
Wow.
which is pretty cool for a South Pacific
Sure.
blue marlin.
Yeah, is Vanuatu, is that known for having a lot of granders?
There have been granders caught before, but I think that was the third and
Wow.
possibly only the last one that's been caught there. There's a famous photo of a big fish that was caught by a commercial guy there, but no, we caught a 65-pound blue marlin on fly there and an 1,142-pound blue marlin on. So if you think about how and why Kona and Hawaii, those islands in the North Pacific, out in the middle of nowhere, and they attract blue marlin, big blue marlin. Vanuatu is like a southern hemisphere version of the same thing. I'm very sure that they spend time there to breed because of the fact that there's little guys there and big guys, But there's not enough fishing pressure there to ever work it out. If you had a fleet of Kona boats going in and out every day, there'd be more caught. Wonderful place.
It's kind of nice knowing that there's a little honey hole somewhere where it's not going to get overfished.
Yeah, but the problem with marlin, blue marlin and tunas, they
Travel. Right?
They travel, so they can be protected in one town and fucking hammered in the next, So, and a lot of things go on out in the ocean you don't see.
Right.
So the blue marlin, my buddy Rush, who was on the boat that day, he fishes out of there, and he hasn't seen a fish over 600 pound for about 5 years. But that currents can change too.
Right. Tell me about wiring fish and getting pulled out of the boat, if I'm not mistaken, and you get run over.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a club in Australia called the Underwater Wireman's Club. Now,
Underwater Wireman's Club.
yeah, now I'm actually.
Are you the captain of that?
No, I'm not, because I never touched the wire that day that I went in. What happened was I was only a young fella, but I was leaning against the transom trying to grab the leader, and the transom door was a Bertram 35. It had a little, like a toilet latch to keep it closed. So there's water pressure pushing against the transom.
Keeping the door shut.
And the boat's vibrating. I'm leaning out to grab the leader. There's only 3 of us on board, the captain, Japanese client, myself. And just as I don't know what happened, I leant forward to grab it, which unfortunately I never did, so I don't get to join the Underwater Wireman's Club. But the door opened, I went in, and the boat kept coming, and
so you're going backwards, chasing down the fish.
The fish is right there, and we're just trying to get at him.
So you got a prop in your hand?
I got a prop in my guts all the way up to my chest, on my hips, on my elbow, on my forehead.
Oh, you got run over.
And I got chopped here and here. And then I pushed out at the end. I got cut across the tendons there. So I was pretty lucky.
So when you shake hands,
That's
two
why I've
fingers
got
are a little.
I try if I get tucked in when I shake someone's hand, they can't tell. But if I don't, I just wink at them and they go away.
I don't want to shake your hand anyway.
But yeah. So I was cut there. They took tendons out of my arms.
Wow.
I was lucky. Not many fish go into the wheels and come out alive.
Yeah.
How many stitches?
165.
No kidding. What were you thinking when this was going
Well, I'll
down?
tell you, your life does flash before your eyes. I can still see the colour of the bottom of the boat. I can see those propellers hitting my stomach. Anywhere it hit soft, like my belly and that, it didn't split me open. Every time it hit a bone, it's cut me here, cut me really bad here, which I didn't know at the time. But when it felt like I was there for 20 minutes. I was there for seconds. But my life flashed before my eyes. I thought I was dead.
What'd you see when your life was going by?
Some of the girls I knew mainly, but I was young. No, I saw lots of things.
Did that change your life in any way?
No, not really. Not really. But
make you appreciate life a little bit more, possibly?
They always said to me, only the good die young. And I was young then, so I had plenty of time. They do tell me now that I'm not so young anymore. But the worst thing about that whole deal was that when I came out from under the prop, because the Japanese guy's getting smashed because he was in the chair, and next thing he's out of the chair, he's trying to work out what's going on. And I couldn't look down because I thought my stomach was hanging out. I thought I was disemboweled. And there was nothing in the world that could tell me that I wasn't, because I'd just seen the propeller doing this. Anyway, the captain, Bobby Jones, a lifelong friend who rings me every birthday and every Christmas because he thought he killed me.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful old man now. He's still fishing. He said, "You're not bleeding. You're not bleeding." I said, "No, my guts are hanging out." He said, "You're not bleeding." Anyway, I finally managed to put my head down, and I could see I had a rip in my shirt, but I was okay. I said, "I'm good, come and get me." So I got back in the boat. I said, "I'm fine." I had a little bit of blood coming out here, I remember, and a little bit of blood coming out here. And I put the Japanese guy, who had no English, in the chair, and I said to Bobby, "Let's cut this fish off." Because when Bobby went back on the bridge to come and get me, I'm just thinking, I can't believe my guts aren't hanging out.
Sure.
And then I turned around, there's this 180-pound striped marlin. I said, now I'm going to get speared. He's right there. But anyway, we got back in the boat. I grabbed the leader with my left arm, no problem at all. I take a wrap with my right arm, and I put pressure on that, and my elbow came shooting out of the skin, and 5 gallons of blood just went into the corner of the boat, and I went, "No, I don't think I'm okay."
That's crazy.
And my elbow was sticking right out.
So you tried to wire that fish after you got
just trying to get it close and cut it off.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I wasn't feeling so good.
How far of a run did you have
We
to the hospital?
We were 30 miles offshore, but we ran to an island, and Bobby had organised for a medical helicopter, and I flew to Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pissed off when they got there with the helicopter because they thought I was mincemeat. And I actually walked to the chopper, and I could tell that those guys were expecting more.
Right.
They wanted to see more damage.
Well, you never know. One of the things that I was kind of interested in the last time I had seen Tom is, the dynamics of these fish, the blues, the stripes, and the black marlin. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just play this right here.
We did get a blue one 12.
Another thought on the striped marlin's personality.
Personality of a striped marlin.
If you hook him and you play him, you have him for a while, and he gets near the boat and you miss the gaff shot, you scratch him, bad mistake, because once he's scratched, he knows this is a bad place to be, and it is just about, even if he's a tiny one, 170-pounder, he turns into a real nasty thing. Now, the other thing that they do, blue marlin, we've hooked those things 500 pounds or something like that. They get into a routine. They'll swim into the sun, so you're staring at the sun, so you can't see him. Hopefully it gets so the tide and the current are working to carry him and everything. And he'll come up and he'll roll on his side, and that eye will look at you, and it's an eye. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's an eye that looks at you, and he says, "Motherfucker, you fuck with me, I'll come in that boat and kill you." I mean, they're really fascinating beasts. As much as the poon is fly fishing, you get into this marlin stuff and you actually catch them. You learn who and what they are and what they have to say. They are fascinating creatures, and they are exciting beyond belief. I mean, they are the athletes of the ocean. So that's that.
There should be a recording before that that explains.
And I think the black marlin.
Yeah, get that up.
Yeah. I mean, I love this stuff.
They do have personalities. There's no question.
Okay, so this is the personality of the three marlins. And I would suspect maybe Dean might have a different view, but I'll start with the black marlin first, since he's the baddest of all these creatures in many respects. He totally, completely is not a fly rod fish. First of all, he's a reef fish. He ambushes. He's black. He's called black because he is black. He's not easy to see. He sneaks up behind the baits. He looks at them. He's very clever. He says, "I'll go eat this one, then I'll kill this one, then I'll kill that one, and then I'll go and clean the whole package up." So he doesn't come in like a blue marlin or any of the other ones. So he's a thinking sort of a cocksucker. And on top of that, he teases terribly, because once he decides to make a commitment, he slams the thing so goddamn hard it scares him and he leaves. He's clever.
He's been paying attention, Tom.
If you can get him on a fly, because he knows he's the baddest animal in the world, he's not scared of the boat or anything, and he generally makes a big run, and then he just goes and he sort of wallows. And when they have that wallow sort of a chance, you got a chance that you can stick a spike in it. But it's only a very quick opportunity. But he first of all, he's impossible to get hooked on a fly, just about. And then he gives you that opportunity that the other two marlins don't. Now, blue marlin, he's just a badass. He's a psycho. He comes in, he's totally just, he needs to be in the insane asylum. And he just smashes everything. And he teases generally really well, because he's so committed and knows. So you can, but then you get him on the string, and he doesn't want to get caught at all, especially if you got different thermoclines and everything. Like in the South Pacific, you go down 500 feet. That's an awful lot of line and slack to try to come up tight against the fish before you put any real pressure on him even. So you've got all that water pressure on the backing and everything. So that's a problem. It's not a problem in Costa Rica because the thermocline's at 200 feet. So those fish tend to spend more time on the surface. It doesn't mean that they're easier, really. It's just, well, I do think they're easier, the blue marlin of the Pacific. And it's also the case of the blue marlin in the Atlantic. I think that thermocline's not as deep either. So if you want to catch a blue marlin, you don't want to go to the South Pacific. That's the first step. Then the striped marlin, well, he's a scaredy cat marlin. He pack hunts like wolves in a pack. He grew up small, and he has a small person's marlin attitude. So he's not a psycho. He's not an ambusher or any of that stuff. He teases really well. He teases even better if he's got some mates around in this competition. And the thing he doesn't realize is that once he's 200 pounds, he is without question, I think, worse than the blue marlin to try to catch, because he's smart. Because he was a scaredy cat once when he was small. Now he's not. He doesn't realize what a motherfucker he is. So it's a really interesting personalities to these three critters. And I think as you get to know them and everything, it's part of the fascination of trying to catch them. Although I got to tell you, the black marlin and everything, he ate us up. I mean, we got eaten up 3-4 times on the reef for a month, and you can't tease them. You just can't. I mean, they you bang, they hit the thing, and they hit that goddamn teaser so hard, I think it knocks their teeth out, and they go away. They go back and hide in a rock or something.
What do you think of all that?
Well, he was paying attention. The interesting thing about the black marlin is that, and it's no, like Tom's seen them, unfortunately Tom didn't see the best black marlin fishing in Port Stephens that we used to have. And the biggest difference and why Tom talks about those blacks being ambush feeders, when they're on the reef, they're eating big food, you know. They do ambush, and they don't particularly pick one species to eat. They're just eating whatever they can get, but they are very good at eating, and they'll grab a big bait and they won't let it go. The difference with the black marlin, why the records all came from Port Stephens, is the black marlin is there to eat slimies, that big slimy mackerel. So they've got a totally different mindset to how they
Is
feed.
that where you guys caught the 183 on 12?
Yes, and the 101, the 221 for Brian Kane, and my world record on 16, all there. So those marlin they're feeding differently.
Sure.
When we went to Panama to try and catch the black marlin, because it was hard to find a 300-pound black marlin. On the reef, they were 180 or 800, and they've got that. They're there to spawn. When they grab the bait, baits can be this big. We fish with baits this big. It's hard to use a teaser that big.
Wow.
And they'll grab a big bait and take it 20 foot down. And if that's a teaser bait, you can't get that back out of the water column before they've got it again. But when they're at Port Stephens, they're feeding on giant schools of mackerel, which are small. So they've got a totally different attitude to the way they feed. And when the striped marlin fishing was really good, the striped marlin would push the bait to the top, these millions of slimies, and the black marlin would get in there and have his way with them in amongst the striped marlin. So they were able to see our teasers, and we could tease them up and catch them. When the striped marlin started to thin out because of live baiters and longliners, the blacks didn't go to work and push that bait to the top. They just did whatever they want down there. Every black marlin, whether it's 50 pound or 80 pound or 150 pound, thinks he's already 1,000 pounds. So they've got a different attitude for sure. So that's the reason that we try to put ourselves where the right size marlin was, but Panama, they're eating tunas, and tunas are fast. They don't miss a tuna when they grab them. So we would get creamed on the teasers, and as Tom said, they chung themselves so bad on the bite because we're trying to pull on them instead of them just swimming away with a tuna in its mouth.
So it's hard to transfer from the teaser to the fly.
Yeah, so there's so many things, like I used to do a lot of fly fishing for wahoo. When there was a lot of flying fish, because a wahoo, his general MO is to eat the bait and bite the middle of the bait out, so you've got a head and a tail. He's already got the middle. The tail falls away and the head falls away. And they're quite easy to tease when that's going on, if you can rig your stuff with wire. And I really like to fly fish for wahoo. I think they're a great fish. But when they're feeding on flying fish, they've got a different, they don't use that cut the bait in half.
Right. They get the whole fish.
They come up from behind. So you'd tease a wahoo up while the flying fish are around, throw the fly out and get a bite and he's bit your tippet off because he's just gone, no sideways bites. So understanding what the fish you're targeting is feeding on is a big part of how you work out how you're going to tease them for a fly rod shot. So
your life has been a fisherman, a guide, but when you're offshore, you caught a bunch of records yourself, and then you worked as a mate and a gaff man for a lot of different people. You were never running the boat.
No,
correct?
I never ran. I've done a lot of work as a crewman, just normal heavy tackle fishing in Cairns, but most of the fly fishing stuff, I'd run the program from the deck.
Yeah, that's where the excitement is. You're the quarterback.
Yeah, well, I guess. I don't know much about that type of football, but
I think you'd be a great rugby player too.
But yeah, so I'd because my best friends are the best marlin captains in the world, but they don't know a lot about fly fishing. And, you know, like Darren Hayden, my best buddy Biggles, who's done 37 seasons in Cairns, you know, we caught a lot of world records with Tom and with other people as well.
Sure.
But I'm the fly fisherman, he's the marlin captain, and we work together because plenty of marlin captains have tried to be fly fishing captains and they don't understand it. And if the client doesn't understand it and the crew doesn't understand it, they're bumping into each other like the Three Stooges, you know. So, yeah, with Tom, I was always on the deck teasing the fish, and that's my specialty. And I could get the fish in a position where I knew
he could make the cast.
He could get a bite.
Yeah, it was always interesting when we went to Panama with you guys to watch how you did it. I really wanted both Nikki and I to watch you guys. You know,
we didn't have much fish.
You didn't have much fish in there, but you always had your hand on the rod. You wanted to feel the hit, the bounce, or something. You know. And I remember the other mate was sitting there and over here in the cushion, the younger guy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was pretty fucking boring. There was not much going on. I said, how do you do this? He says, because I know what's down there.
Yeah, I thought that was a great answer.
Yeah. So the patience is really knowing what's down there and what could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you got to be, as a teaser guy, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone that's ever done it the way I've done it, but nothing happens unless you are on top of what's going on. If I don't see the bite, I just need information quickly. Was it left or right? Was it aggressive? Did he hit the thing or just make a pass? Because there's a million things you can do to
keep him there.
But if you don't know what happened at the start, so many times I've just felt that. I said, oh, there's one there, but no one saw it.
Do you have a good feel if he's going left or right?
Well,
unless you see it.
Generally speaking, a fish will go from inside out. So if he eats on the right, he'll come in and go left. Mm-hmm. If he comes in on the left, he'll come in and go right. He'll use the wash to ambush. And if you've teasing a fish and you've had a couple of casts and a couple of shots and switched him and nothing's happened, and all of a sudden he shows outside of the wash, he's done. He's not trying to hide now. He's just wondering what the fuck's going on. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's lots of little things like that that you just learn from experience, you know. You can't teach that stuff. You just learn it.
So what's your favorite marlin to fish for?
If fun fish, striped marlin. Like Tom said, the black marlin thinks he's 1,000 pounds and he treats you like that. But he does give you an early shot. But if he's feeding on big baits, hard to catch. The blue marlin is unbelievably exciting, but I don't really think the blue and the black are the fly rod species of choice. But a striped marlin is smarter than a blue and a black because, like a sailfish, the striped marlin will work with other striped marlin to organise their food, whereas blacks could be together, but they're not schooling up like a sailfish or a striped marlin. But a striped marlin can't hide because he's got big blue pectorals when he gets excited. He's got a big high dorsal fin. So everyone gets to see that thing coming in. And we call them flag wavers, Oh, look, here he comes. And the bigger they are, the bigger their dorsal, big blue wings.
Beautiful, right? Is that the prettiest fish?
Oh, I think so. On the tees they are
Yeah.
for sure. And because like sailfish, they're found around bait balls, like in Mag Bay, they're eating little bait. They're not crash tackling big baits, so they can you can tease them really well. And the trick with teasing is basically, and I like to tease with dead bait that's sewn up really strong. But if you can get him up to the boat and right at the end give him a taste and jerk it out of his mouth when he thinks he should have it, he thinks it just got away from him. And you slap that fly down, he just spins and eats it going away, and it's such a cool bite. And you can actually catch them. If they're 150, 170 pounders, a big fish on the fly rod, but you can catch them. You can hook a 250-pound blue marlin or a 500-pound blue marlin or black marlin. They're hard to catch on the fly.
So 1,000-pound blue marlin and 1,000-pound black marlin. The blue marlin has more power.
No, not necessarily. No. They're very different fish. I think a black marlin's probably a harder opponent than a blue
Is that
marlin,
right?
because the blue marlin, because as Tom said, they are psycho and they change direction. But a black marlin, if you don't, I'm talking heavy tackle now, if you don't make that fish do some stuff and he settles down, you'll never catch him. He'll just pull 50 pounds of drag all day.
Oh, shit.
Whereas a blue marlin will be that whipped up, he's running left, right, centre, up and down, then he'll dive. And then quite often blue marlin will die. Very rare for a black marlin to die on the line, whereas blue marlin do.
Do you ever move the boat further away from the fish when they get really deep to try to get them to
yeah.
come
Well,
up?
you've got to utilise plenty of people. I know guys that have had blue marlin that have dived so deep that they figured the fish had died, and it ultimately didn't. Then you've got to try and use the current and back away and get him up in the current.
Change the angle, right?
Yeah, but that's on a real. The problem with a lot of marlin fishermen is that they don't know where the marlin is. They don't know when they're actually applying the right amount of drag. They don't understand how to use angles to create bellies, and we could talk about that for hours. But I've had guys that have had blue marlin dive and then they couldn't lift them. And they finally get them coming. They use the current to lift them. The marlin's covered in mud. It's just swam into the bottom.
I've heard that.
At 100 miles an hour.
They just on purpose? Trying to get
they just fucked up because they're psycho.
They don't see the bottom and they just swim right into the mud.
They just know it's bad because most fish pull against the pull.
Sure.
So you pull this way, it goes that way.
It's going down.
Now, a blue marlin, what happens with a blue marlin is he goes out, he goes round, he goes down, he goes up, and all of a sudden he's got all this belly in the water and it's pulling him from all sorts of angles. And he'll pull a small belly out of the line and he's jumping that way, and then he's got a major belly and he's jumping against the belly. And
oh, interesting.
so, yeah, you can, and the beauty of bait and switch and fly fishing is when you hook them right there at the back of the boat, you've got a better ability to stay with the fish and understand what he's doing. But any captain in the world that's done a lot of it and is any good at it knows what I'm talking about. But I've seen plenty of guys just thinking the fish is straight down. It's actually jumping in front of their boat. They just don't know.
Wow.
Happens all the time.
Hey, I got a question for you. I heard from Carl Anderson that he said Peter Wright and Carl, they were over in the Bahamas catching the big bluefin tuna on the white sand.
Yeah.
And they took that technique to Australia, to the Great Barrier Reef, and that's what they used, that technique to catch the granders initially. Is that true?
Well, I'm sure that Peter's experience from catching tunas and understanding what I just said before about
right.
The difference between a tuna and a marlin, and why I'd much rather go marlin fishing, is every tuna you get on does the same thing.
Right.
Every marlin you get on does something different. I'd never seen that before. Whereas a tuna has his, but I'd never caught tuna in the shallows like they do in the Bahamas. And I can't imagine what goes on then, but most of my tuna fishing is yellowfin out deep. And you just need drag to pull those things up because they'll go long and hard and down. But, I'm sure, I know that Peter was a great fisherman, and I know that he learned from experience all over the world.
Let's talk a little bit more about the bill fishing before we move on. How hard is it? I mean, take a look at some of these records that you guys caught, you and Tom, because Tom's flying in tomorrow.
Me and Tom and whoever the captain was.
Yeah.
And the crew.
And it's a village, obviously. But how hard is it to catch a 231 on 16 and a 240 on 20 with a fly rod and actually bring it to the boat and take it in and weigh it?
It's really hard.
What's the key to that?
Putting one foot in front of the other and keep doing what you know, and make the right move and hope the fish makes the wrong move.
See, what's interesting with tarpon, we can close in on the fish. We get really close and he's 20 feet away and you can pull here. But in a marlin, you can't use the angles on the marlin like you can with the tarpon.
No.
Because you don't know where his head is. He's down.
Well, I think I said before, if you don't know where the marlin is, you fucked up before you started, because most fish, tarpon included, they're either ripping the surface apart or they're swimming. And marlin do exactly the same. And when a marlin's jumping, there's nothing you can do. You just certainly don't want to tighten your drag up.
No.
Let him know. But you do know, based on whether he is a blue or a black or a stripe, that at some point in time he's going to slow down, and then that belly we're talking about comes into it. But they're only ever doing this, swimming slow or relatively slow, or they're running fast and jumping, or running fast and changing direction, same as a tarpon. So even though you can't see the fish, you can use the boat and with a good angler like Tom, apply pressure at the right time. There's no point pulling on him when it's 300 yards out, but and we mark our lines so we know when the fish is where it is, when we're close enough to start thinking about it. And sometimes all you're trying to do is pull the belly out. Never fish out of the back of the boat. We always fish out of the side of the boat, and we're just dealing with belly. And then we're trying to get, and that fish is doing this. So the
you want to create belly for more resistance.
And see, the other thing that most marlin fishing captains don't get is that a fly line creates a whole different set of pressure on the fish than a normal conventional line. So we use the fly line to our advantage, but we're basically trying to get tight to the fish when we're 60 feet out from the fly line, trying to close the belly and get tight to the fish, and then make it do some stuff, because you're actually pulling. You can pull from different angles then, and the angler can actually start to do things. You see reaction, get the fish jumping away, and and say, okay, we can make him do that again. And then it's a matter of the right captain trying to put the boat in the right position once that situation comes down, and you basically, there's two ways to win a fight when you light tackle fishing or fly fishing. On the street, there's two ways to win a fight. You can talk smarter than the guy you're going to fight, or you can go hand to hand and see what happens, But you got to outsmart the fish. You got to confuse the fish. You've got to try and put him in a position where he doesn't actually know that he's just put his back out of the water, and then
giving you a shot.
Give us a shot, and then that's the final quarter. Then you do everything you do, and then now you've got to handle it with a couple of stick gaffs. And
what's that like? Because you only have an 8-foot gaff. You don't have a flying gaff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
Have you been yanked out of the boat with a stick gaff?
I have, yeah. But
so you are a member of the underwater.
Well, I'm a water gaff man. But
and that's on Marlin you've been yanked out with.
Yeah, I got yanked out one day, and because I'd been run over, I just hung on, and the fish went down and then came up, and then I was still alive, so I thought I'd just hang on, and I got dragged across the.
Did you get him?
No, I got back in the boat, and it was on 12 pounds, a big striped marlin. we always have lots of gaffs, so we lost that gaff to the fish. But he went down, and I remember about 10 minutes later he come flying out of the water, and there's my gaff that I'd let go of hanging out of him. And it banged against him in
flight.
our atmosphere and freaked him out, and he broke us off. But
Wow.
Didn't Tom have like a 600-pounder right boat side? Or really?
I gaffed a 600-pounder, and I said to Tom, if I get a gaff in this, grab the back of the gaff. And he and I hanging onto the gaff, and the fish went under the boat and just exploded that pole.
The gaff.
The gaff, yeah.
Broke the gaff.
Lots of gaffs. Lots of gaffs that broke.
Well, I love that line, speaking about that gaff that broke, that he says in the last podcast. He said, we broke everything. We broke our minds. We broke our rods. We broke our marriages. We broke the whole thing.
Yeah, there's not too much we hadn't broke.
Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, it's just so amazing what you did. Let's go back a little bit.
Just on gaffs, I remember twice having to go to hospital because I kicked a gaff once, and Tom was there. I got him to pay for the stitches. And
you kicked a gaff because you missed a fish or something?
No, I just had him in a stupid spot, and then I had him in another stupid spot, and I punched a gaff and put one right through there. So Tom paid for those stitches.
You want another beer?
Yeah.
Give him two more.
Can we stop for a sec?
Yep.
Yeah. Talk about Peter Wright. He's like the Steve Huff of the offshore world, right? The Marlin world, isn't he? Peter Wright?
Peter was lucky enough to, and rest in peace, Pete, but he was in Cairns. I don't know. I never fished with Pete, but I know him. And we flogged him with the fly rod because he didn't know anything about fly fishing. He didn't respect fly fishing. And
because you couldn't catch a big fish with a fly?
Well, he just didn't get it, you know. He if you're not a fly fisherman, you're 40 years of age and you're running a boat and you're the best at catching big fish, doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it with a fly rod as a captain.
Right. Interesting.
There's a difference between a conventional gray captain and a fly rod gray captain.
Well, yeah, and you know, like I'm the great fly fishing captains that I fish with are great because they fish with me, with all due respect.
Right.
But in their own right, they're the best of the best. But it's the difference between it's more of a team effort, like a well-oiled marlin fishing team are unbelievable. Dingo, I'd love to name all of the people that are the best at it, and I could tell you all the best of them, and most of them come out of Australia because we've got that great big black marlin fishery. But great captains have taken people fly fishermen, and the fly fishermen are trying to tell the captain what to do. The captain doesn't really know what the fly fishermen are doing. The fly fishermen don't really know what's going on. They think what they think, but it's a team effort, and the reason we did so well is that we had the best captain, we had the best crew,
the best boat.
Well, sometimes we had shit boats, and and caught them, but it's just a different way to take marlin on, and I've always said it's a silly way to try and catch a marlin, but it's very exciting when it all comes together.
Right.
But you know, I know some of the records that have been set in Central America are not legal because I just know that for a fact. And
because you know who are the guys that are
fishing?
fishing?
I spoke to the crew. I asked how they did it. They wanted to fish with the outriggers down. I said, well, how's the guy going to make a cast? I said, oh, just throw it in. Doesn't matter. They approached fly fishing like conventional fishing. Mm-hmm. It's just a different piece of tackle to hook the fish using conventional tackle methods, and that's not how we did it, you know. And I know some world records, hopefully most of them are gone now, but they weren't legal.
Interesting.
But
it's such a hard game because you don't have a witness.
No,
it's all integrity.
But if you've got a boat full of people that don't know the rules,
you don't have a chance.
Well, or you catch a fish illegally and it ends up in the book because there's not a lot of people like Tom they've dedicated so much time to doing it the way it was meant to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know Tom's thoughts about 20 on the poon flat and stuff like that.
Right. That means 20-pound test for tarpon because
Yeah,
it was originally
yeah.
16-pound test, and then Billy Pate got the IGFA to accept 20-pound tests, but
Because
originally
he couldn't
forever.
catch the marlin the way
Yeah.
he wanted to. He wanted flying gaffs and all of that. We never wanted to change it. We didn't want to make it easy. We did it because it wasn't easy.
Well, we fly fish because they're willing to accept the liabilities.
Yes.
The hardness of it.
Yeah. And we have a saying, those that know, and fuck everyone else, basically. Mm-hmm. With all due respect to everyone else. But
yeah. I have a question. I want to bring it back. You talked about the 280 or the 290 you caught that you said could have been 3, but you had scale issues. What was the scale issue?
We caught the 273 on 16 in Vanuatu, and then for whatever reason, those fish wanted to get caught. Tom mentioned thermoclines before, and I assume that you know what a thermocline is. It's where 2 pieces of water meet. That's the thermocline. And
the temperatures change.
Well, yeah, currents can be going a different way, can be different water, but blue marlin in the South Pacific generally spend their time, so do the bait, the yellowfin tuners, below the thermocline. Now, the thermocline can be 300 feet under the boat, or it can be 200 feet under the boat. And every now and then, it's the water they want to be in is on the surface.
Mm.
And we had one year, we caught that 273. So when you hook a fish and his comfort zone is on the surface, he's not as likely to dive deep under the thermocline because that is his happy place at the time. And the South Pacific, same in Kona, the thermocline is generally 100 to 300 feet below the boat. So when you get them on, they do have an inclination to want to get under that thermocline because that's where they want to be. In Panama in the Pacific, that piece of water they want to be in is on the surface. So they won't necessarily do those big crash dives. In the Atlantic Ocean, and this is all documented,
Sure.
The water they want to be in is on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So that first 200 feet makes them easier to catch them when they're coming out of 300 or 400 feet to feed and then heading back that way. So I forgot
But what was the scale issue?
Oh, okay. So that particular season, the fish wanted to be on top, so we were getting more opportunities. I think we caught 4 blue marlin that trip, and when I say caught, in the boat, and we caught the 273 on 16, and then we caught a fish that I believe was quite a bit bigger than that, maybe 30, maybe 40 pounds, but we couldn't get we were dealing with, it's a long story, but we were dealing with this, we got 310, I think, on the scale. But I watched the way he weighed that fish and I didn't think it was right. So I took the captain, the crew and Tom aside and I said, we thought we caught a 300 pounder. And I said, I don't think that scale's right. And we checked the scale and there's a big crowd had gathered and it got too hard. And I said, we can take this piece of paper that says the fish weighed 310 or whatever the weight was. It was over 3. But I don't think it weighed that much. I don't think they weighed the fish right. So we had a meeting and said, well, if the weigh wasn't right, if it wasn't right, it wasn't right. And by then the fish had been cut into 50 pieces. I said, it's up to you guys, but I don't think we can claim it because I just don't think the weigh-in was right. And there was one particular guy involved who had other vested interests in that fish being
A record.
Oh, gotcha.
So it just got a shit fight, and we never submitted the fish. We called it 280.
You ate it.
And if I show you the picture of that fish, it's pretty big.
It's very interesting.
But I wanted to catch one legal, and Tom was the same. The captain, the only one was the captain. He said, "Oh, we just caught a world record, but it's disqualified. But anyway, it
Well,
was
you can
just
live with yourself. You know, you can look in the mirror. No problem.
Yeah. You know, ignorance can see a record go through that's not legal, but we all knew what we were doing. Many times a cast would be made just before the boat went in gear and it'd be a potential record, and we'd look at each other and say, well, this one's fucked. We can't deal with it. And it's a split second, you know.
Yeah.
But 12 inches is 12 inches. It's not 12 and a quarter.
Sure.
It's what it is.
Talking about the bay tippet, the leaders.
Yeah, or whatever the rules are. The rules are the rules.
12 with knots, including knots. Well, let's go
I've
back.
seen people trying to stretch cable because the cable on the lure wasn't legal. They go, oh.
Let's go back to your early years in Australia. What was your upbringing like? I mean, were you a fisherman at a very young age?
Not a baby fisherman, but I fished when I was about 10 and just loved it with a hand line and all of that. The only time my father ever took me fishing, and he hated fishing. But yeah, I got into it just locally, fishing in rivers and stuff from about 13. Got into it full time any way I could at about 22.
You loved it.
I just wanted to fish.
Were you offshore at 22 already?
Well, what really got me was at 18 years of age, I went on a charter boat with my girlfriend at the time, and we went off tuna fishing on this boat on the east coast of Australia. I caught some tunas about that big, and that was the biggest fish I'd ever caught, and that was it. I was hooked. And I realised I wasn't going to make enough money doing what I was doing for a living at the time to do that as much as I wanted. So
What were you doing then?
I was selling ball and roller bearings in an automotive store, and I was good at it and looked after about 3 or 4 branches, and but I realised I wanted to fish. I did a charter to a place called Lord Howe Island when I was about 22 and caught big kingfish and tunas, and I just knew. I met a guy there. That would have been in the early 80s, I guess. A guy called Rod Harrison, an Australian.
Right.
Heard of Rod?
Yep.
Who became a good friend and mentor to me, and we did a lot of fishing together. We ended up starting with a guy called John Hankey, a production crew, so we could film some of the stuff we were doing, and Rod was one of the first people to bring saltwater fly fishing to Australia. He'd been talking with Lefty, and that's how I met Lefty, through Rod. And we made some films in remote Australia and Papua New Guinea, and got Lefty down, and I was basically, Rod.
He loved fishing with you. He loves talking
Lefty,
about the black bass.
yeah.
And with you.
Oh, my God.
Tell me about that story.
Yeah, well, the first time we took Lefty there, it was funny. Lefty came down for 3 weeks the first time he came down, and we organised a week in the northwest Kimberley of Australia, which is the northwest of Australia, and it's the remotest part of Australia, and there's some wonderful fishing there for barramundi and queenfish and giant trevallies, and it's shallow water and river fishing in amongst the trees and stuff like that. And when Lefty first came down, he had his beautiful pressed checkered fishing shirt and his nice white, or his fucking beige pants and his shoes, and
Pressed.
oh yeah, he looked $1 million, you know, and we were just like this. And after a couple of weeks, he said, "Now I know why all you guys look so shitty in the photos, because we're out in the bush, we're rolling around the dirt." And he spoke softly and he never sweared. And after about a week and a half, he's fuck this, fuck that. And
He's right.
He became an Aussie real
oh, he
quick.
came an Aussie real quick. So by the time we got him to New Guinea, he was pretty chilled out. He didn't have a clean pair of fucking pants. But he was having a good time because he was fishing. I remember him saying, "We've been in camp here for 10 days. I've never seen an aeroplane fly over the camp. I've seen nothing, no people, no nothing, just fish and crocodiles and drunken Aussies." That's all he had. He just loved it. He was having the time of his life. You know, with all the experience and all the places he'd been around in the world, he was with people that just loved to fish and had a passion for fishing and fly fishing, and were taking him to these remote places. So we did a week, or I can't remember the days. It was maybe 7 or 10 days in the Kimberley. Then we went to the Northern Territory, which was remote at that stage. And we're going back 40 years nearly now, 35, 38 years. Had wonderful fishing there. We're getting some really good, some of the videos that are out there that we made are some of the best you'll see.
Can you find that online today?
You could, yeah.
Yeah, you can?
Yeah, I'll hook you up with that.
Okay.
I think Lefty Fishing the Final Frontier was the show that we got out of this particular trip, and they may have, I can't remember what happened to it, I can find out. But and then we took him to Papua New Guinea, which after doing remote Australia, we've just taken him back 150 years into the jungle, you know, and we had a fishing camp there that we'd built. And so he was arse deep in the adventure of it all, and by then he'd got used to us, and he was used to having dirty clothes, and he got really good at swearing. And so we took him into a creek, and Rod, like I used to, I was running the boat, and Lefty and Rod were fishing, and Rod was looking after Lefty, and he hooked a fish. And a black bass is actually a snapper. It's like a cubera snapper. It's very similar to a cubera snapper. Different colouring, but it lives in fresh water. It lives in tidal water as well, but you can catch them in fresh water. And they live under giant log jams that have been created by floods and jungle trees falling down. So tougher to catch than a cubera snapper on the bottom, you know. So they're an ambush feeder too. So they'll come out, turn, and eat whatever they're going to eat going back in, because they don't want to hang out in the current too much, because something else will eat them. So the first bite Lefty got, he just got totally fucking smashed. He had burnt fingers and broken fly line. He went, holy shit. So
it's a real fish.
It's a proper fish. And anyway, he didn't say much about it, and Lefty wasn't scared, but he knew that he had to. There's a camera there. I better look good. And remind me to tell you about when we nearly killed him. But yeah, so he took 40 off, and he went straight to 60, I think. So he had actually it might have been 50, because he didn't want his fly line to break. He thought, I want as much power at the tippet end at the mono, no class tippet, but I want, because we didn't fish. You can't catch those things on 20. And yeah, the next bite he gets, and he did it so quick. Like you get the bite, that thing is going in, and he was able to take a half hitch around his fly reel, and something's going to break, but it ain't going to be my fucking fingers getting chopped off. And he turned that fish. He caught like a 15-pounder, and he loved it.
Did you ever put your boat in reverse to try to?
I used to run. I never turned the boat off.
So you'd hook up.
I always had an exit plan every cast. So yeah, I'm pulling and he's pulling, and I'm trying to drive. Because if you just sat there in neutral or without the motor, you'd fucking boat would end up in the snag while he's hanging on. So no, I know he loved that fish, that particular fish, and he ended up on other trips. He came to another fishing camp of mine and bought an old mate of his, Bob Marriott, who owns the fly store in Orange County, I think, California. And yeah, Bob didn't even want to fish. He saw some of these fish that Lefty was tangling with, and I'm just happy to sit back. And what I used to do with Bob is, after the day was done, I'd say, let's grab a couple of Australian fly rods, and we just used to drink rum and troll lures off short rods, you know. He loved it. But it was good fun, great times.
So how did you almost kill Lefty?
Well, it's funny, this story was kept quiet for so many years. But it came out before Lefty passed. But basically, there was me and Rod Harrison, and I've told this in public enough times. Sorry, Rod, but
It's out.
it's out. So because in the old days we're fishing our little aluminum boats, tinnies, and Rod's running the boat. I'm in the centre of the boat, and we're running down to the mouth of this river in the Kimberley to fish for queenfish. And Lefty's sitting on the bow of this rounded bow on this little 14-foot boat. Rod's driving the boat, and one of the other boats comes past us, and we get to this point where this big crocodile was. And Rod's a really good fisherman and not a bad boat driver. But anyway, we hit this wake, and we're going as fast as we can with these little boats. Next thing, Lefty shoots in the air, goes into the drink next to the boat, and I'm just waiting to hear that Lefty's body hit the propeller, and it didn't. And Rod just turns white as that chair there, and I said, fuck, I think we just killed Lefty. And he didn't come up. He didn't come up. And I'm saying to Rod, first week of this trip, and you've killed him. Because we're thinking boat chopped him, crocodiles got him, and he didn't come up. He didn't come up.
Something's got him.
Anyway, way back behind the boat, and Rod is just devastated. Lefty's lost his hat, his little bald head popped up. He looked like a fucking turtle. Pops his head up and goes,
I'm over here.
So we go and get him, and poor old Rod, he was fucking just...
What did Lefty say?
Well, you know what Lefty said? I shouldn't have been sitting on the bow.
Yeah.
That's Lefty.
That's Lefty.
Yeah.
But yeah, what his strategy was, he thought he was going to get it, so he dived. He went down.
To make sure the boat got over him.
Boat didn't get him, and then he stayed down there, and yeah, but it was a crocodile spot. So it was only
That's a great story.
a true story. Bad feeling for about 3 minutes, but yeah, well, I'll never forget his Lefty's head popping up.
I can only imagine the stories that night sitting around the campfire
God.
talking about that.
Should we talk about tarpon a little bit?
Yeah. So I understand a lot of Aussies like the fascination of tarpon. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, well,
It's a real celebrity fish, if you will, around the world. People
It is,
want to
most
catch this
definitely.
fish.
Most definitely. When we were young, we were looking up to guys like Billy Pate because the mediums were different then. You didn't have video, or didn't have a lot of video. You had printed magazines. And I think Billy Pate made that 3M movie. And I know you made some, but I think that was the first time we really got to see
The Challenge of Giant Tarpon.
Is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. So we didn't have we don't have that fishery at home, of course, but we chase yellowtail kingfish and, which grow 40, 50 pound, pretty tough on a fly rod, and, giant trevallies and yellowfin tunas. And then, I was the first one to catch a striped marlin on fly in Australia. And so we just wanted to catch big fish, and with the fly rod. So tarpon was always something that certainly my buddies dreamed about catching, and now quite a few Australians have done it. But,
yeah, Chris Adams just fished with Dustin last year.
Did,
and I texted with him a little bit. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So with fly fishing, with saltwater fly fishing, we didn't have a lot of shallow water flats fishing. We have now, we've discovered and found places. A good mate of mine, Alan Philliskirk, pioneered the permit fishing in northern Australia, but we don't have 150 or 100 pound plus fish swim across the flats. And for all of us, it was all about that shallow water sight casting thing. So yeah, if you're into that, you end up thinking about tarpon.
So Tom brought you here to be a gaff man here. If I'm not mistaken,
when
about 20 some years ago.
when I first fished, the first year Tom fished with me in Australia, we caught one black marlin in 30 days, and it blew like 50 bastards for the whole trip, and he got smashed. But he realised that I knew about fly fishing.
Sure.
He wasn't on a game fishing boat, and he was not the only one that understood fly fishing. So all I wanted to talk to him about was catching tarpon, and he just that year before, I think, submitted a nice one on 12-pound test that didn't test.
He caught a 180 on 12. It
and it broke
over-tested.
13 something, yeah. And I just couldn't believe that. So anyway, he invited me over the next, I think it was the same year. I think he fished with me in February, and I came here now, May. Mm-hmm. And he invited me for a week, and I got on the boat and got to see the flats of Homosassa and meet Al and hear the stories, because I'd read the stories in Tom's fishing diaries.
Now you're with the guys.
Now I'm with the best fucking tarpon team in the world, and I was lucky enough to catch a couple of nice ones, and I was hooked, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, this just jumped forward all these years, and the trio, you and Al DePeric and Tom, had all that big run, and now you've got your own skiff here, and Tom's coming in tomorrow.
Well, Al's fishing. He's long-time client.
Yeah, Brian Tang is here with him.
Brian Tang's here now. Tom fished last year. Was his 50th season in a row.
Wow. So how's this look for you?
Well, Tom said that he was done.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I need my tarpon fix. So I got into setting the boat up, and then Al went and booked Brian through the 2 months because Tom wouldn't come back. And then Tom thought, maybe I'll give it one more go. So we're going to try.
Wow.
Just fun fishing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I presume Tom's not going to be around a whole lot longer to be doing this. I mean, he's 84 years old, so you're going to become
87 years
87 years old.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Good for him, man.
Oh, man, as long as Tom's a good mate, and I'm committed to do whatever I can to
see him through.
See him through for as long as he wants to do it. And he knows it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard, but you know what? Everything we've ever done together was hard, so we're going to have a crack.
And I love that line that you said, after Tom said we broke everything, and you said in the previous podcast, but you know who was there? We were fucking there.
Yeah, we were fucking there. Yeah. So we're going to, and we'll start late and finish early.
Yeah.
We'll try and pick the best of the tides. Mm-hmm. I don't want to knock him around. But yeah, we'll be in the game. And I tell you something for sure. He's not as good a caster as he used to be. He doesn't practice. But I know when he gets one on, and we're fishing 8 pound.
You need a 127.5.
Yeah, well, he's looking for a 167, he told me. I'll be happy with a 130.
132.
But the one thing I do know about Tom is, and it could be where he dies, but he will die trying to land that fish once he gets him on.
It's pretty crazy that here's a guy that has lived his biggest dreams here in Homosassa on these flats.
Yep.
And in the book, The Lords of the Fly, the very last line, it says, I hate the poon.
He hates the poon. He does.
But he has dedicated his entire life to it.
What about, are there any local guides that kind of frown upon you coming down here on your own skiff? I'm just curious, because in the Keys, it's pretty sensitive, and that's pretty frowned upon down there. People look at us, my father and I, and they think that we shouldn't be down there.
Well, I'm not guiding.
Right.
I'm taking an old mate fishing.
Right.
Legally, I can own a boat in America. I've got a fishing license. But I've also spent 20-odd years hanging out with Al and Stevie Kilpatrick. And
you're a brother.
Yeah.
You're a brother.
I'm not messing with anyone. I'm not stealing anyone's client. I don't have any clients. I've got Tom as a mate, and I've got a good mate of mine coming out next month. So, but the good thing one of the really good things about here, it's not the Keys.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's no way in a million years I'd tow a boat into the Florida Keys and expect anything but shit.
Yeah. It's a little crowded. Well,
But here, and like this is where the big ones live. I've always been one to want to catch a big fish, But no, the people here that know Tom and Al and Steve and now Brian Dope's part of the crew. It's a good bunch of people here, and they're here for the right reason. And there's a lot more of them fishing records.
yeah.
And I think the respect that Al and Tom have gained over the years has probably grown more now that they've all had a little taste of what it's like to record fish. Because for many years they didn't, So it's invigorated some of their fishing, I think, as well, which is great. But they may have to work out how to do it with a lot less shots than the boys have had over the years, which doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great to have you, buddy. And so glad to be here in Homosassa. I was here 40 years ago, briefly.
I know.
To see you guys still doing it, I got to get a photograph of you and Tom out there in that boat.
Fuck yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah, we'll be out there.
Yeah.
Dean, you're a legend. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
buddy.
guys.
Really appreciate
I really
it.
appreciate your time.
Such an honor.
Thank you, guys.
I think the best was your Hall of Fame event.
The what?
Your Hall of Fame induction. It was just classic. And I was so honored to be there, man. But
I appreciate it. I am just a humble fisherman at the end of the day, and it's such a big honour. I just wish my mum was around to have seen it.
Yeah. Well, again, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
What I saw is West Side Story. What I saw is just a